What happens when the streets crown you king? In Birmingham's inner city, power doesn't come with a throne, it comes with a target on your back. On a late summer evening in 2018, the streets of Lee Bank in Birmingham bore witness to a chilling act of violence that would leave a family shattered and the community in mourning. Anthony Sargeant, a 33-year-old father of 8, known affectionately as the King of Lee Bank, was gunned down in a drive-by shooting outside his mother's home on Rickman Drive. In Birmingham's inner city, a name holds a lot of weight. Its history, its status, its survival, and for years one name rang louder than most: Anthony Sargeant. In Lee Bank, he wasn't just a man, he was a symbol. They called him the king. But in a city carved up by postcode wars, every king eventually faces the blade. Anthony Sargeant was born into a world where you learn fast, or you don't last. Raised in Lee Bank, an estate boxed in by high rises, concrete corridors, and hard-won respect, he was one of many siblings in a large family. From the outside looking in, he lived the kind of life many would envy. A steady job at Jaguar Land Rover, 8 children, a love for football, a gift for music. But no one rises in Lee Bank without struggle. And Sargeant, he knew how to adapt. From a young age, he stood out, not because he was loud, but because he carried presence. He had the rare ability to move through different circles, the older heads, the youth, even those in rival postcodes, and hold their attention. That's why when he started coaching a local Sunday league team, Rickman Rovers, people took notice. It wasn't just football, it was order and discipline. It was something to believe in. Under Sargeant's leadership, the Rovers didn't just win trophies, they created unity in a community long divided. But behind the matchday smiles and pitch-side shouts, another world called to him. As Scally Jonesy, he rapped about life on the roads, about loyalty, betrayal, blood, bars that sounded like lived experience, not fiction. One of his songs, he says, "The chances of getting a headshot are very slim." In hindsight, it was chilling. At the time, just another warning in a city used to war, because Birmingham wasn't calm. In 2018, it was simmering. Years earlier, crews like the Burger Bar Boys and the Johnson crew had turned the city into a battleground, but as they declined, they left behind a vacuum. A generation of younger men, hungrier, more chaotic, rose up to fill it. Postcodes became flags, estates became kingdoms. And Lee Bank, that was Anthony Sargeant's domain. People called him the king, and few argued, but in Gangland, titles are invitations. They attract challengers. And over in Ladywood, challengers were rising. Enter the Goodwin brothers. Connor and Michael Goodwin, from nearby Wallace Road in Oldbury, were building their own reputation, not just as street-level offenders, but as organized operators. They ran stolen cars, cloned number plates, and dealt firearms. They were cold, calculated, and strategic. Their base was Ladywood, just minutes from Lee Bank, but in postcode terms, it may as well have been enemy territory. Rumors say there was history between them and Sargeant, some kind of disrespect, maybe a fallout over money, or a turf clash that turned personal. The police called it bad blood, but on the streets they say it differently. They say it's only a matter of time, and that time came on August 25th, 2018. It was a Saturday night, still warm, quiet. Anthony Sargeant was standing outside his mother's house on Rickman Drive, chatting, joking, relaxed. No hint of what was coming. Then, headlights, a stolen BMW and a red Mercedes. Both vehicles moved slow, no revving, no music, just intent. Inside, Connor and Michael Goodwin, their associates Keenan Anderson and Leon Riley. They drove with windows down and then fired 2 shots. One hit Sargeant in the back, tearing through his insides. Another shattered a kitchen window. The cars sped off. A friend who'd been chatting with him ran in panic, losing a shoe in the chaos. People came out of their flats, screams, sirens, and Anthony, he lay bleeding outside the home he'd grown up in. He was rushed to hospital. Doctors fought for 6 days, but on August 31st, Anthony Sargeant died in hospital with sepsis from internal injuries. He was 33. The king was dead. Within hours of his death, a photo surfaced. Connor Goodwin, pint in hand, surrounded by his crew, laughing, smiling, celebrating his birthday in a pub in Hockley, less than 24 hours after the hit. There was no shame, no remorse, just a message: the job was done. But the case was far from closed. The West Midlands Police launched one of the most complex investigations in recent memory. Witnesses were silent, scared, or loyal, or both. So the detectives turned to forensics, to data, to hard evidence. CCTV showed the stolen cars leaving Ladywood, crossing into Lee Bank, arriving at Rickman Drive, and then fleeing the scene. Cell tower analysis, led by forensic expert Martin Griffiths, placed all 4 suspects exactly where the footage said they were, but they needed more. In early 2019, they got it. A raid on a Derbyshire property uncovered a 9mm Luger pistol, a rare World War II era weapon. Ballistic testing confirmed it. This was the gun used to kill Sargeant. It had passed through multiple hands, been used in other shootings, but now it had a name attached to it, and the case was locked in. In 2022, the trial began. Held at Birmingham Crown Court, it lasted 8 weeks. The prosecution laid it all bare. The CCTV, the cell phone records, the pub celebration, the ballistic evidence. But all 4 defendants denied involvement. No confessions, no slips, just silence. A textbook example of gangland code. Don't talk, don't break, don't fold. The courtroom was tense. Sargeant's family packed the public gallery. Friends came from across Birmingham. You could feel it in the air, not just grief, but pressure. The need for answers, for justice, for closure. But closure doesn't come easy in cases like this. Not when the silence is generational. Still, the jury saw through it. In July 2022, they returned guilty verdicts for all 4 men. At sentencing in March 2023, the judge didn't hold back. He described the killing as a carefully planned ambush, a premeditated hit involving burner phones, stolen cars, and a crew who knew exactly what they were doing. Even if the court couldn't say who fired the shot, all 4 were responsible. They received the following sentences: Connor Goodwin, life, minimum 32 years. Keenan Anderson, life, minimum 32 years. Michael Goodwin, life, minimum 28 years. Leon Riley, life, minimum 28 years. As the judge read the sentences, chaos erupted. Fists flew in the courtroom. Screams rang out. Court security rushed to break it up. 2 arrests were made on the spot. Even justice couldn't end the war. And it didn't, because in May 2019, just 9 months after the murder, the cycle turned violent again. Kamani Shaw, known as Marnes Malone, was stabbed nearly 20 times in a Hockley underpass. He survived. The next day, Dante Mullings, one of the men linked to Sargeant's murder, was shot dead in Ladywood. He was sitting in a car with 2 others. A VW Passat pulled up beside them. 8 bullets shot him in the lower back, head and arms. Mullings tried to run. CCTV showed him climbing barriers, sprinting, stumbling, but he collapsed in the street. He died meters from a primary school. The shooters thought they were avenging Shaw's stabbing, but they got the wrong man. Still, revenge doesn't need facts. And so the body count grew. In 2021, 4 men were jailed for Mullings' murder, including known gang figures Omani and Ishan Bernard. More lives gone, more years behind bars, more silence. So what's left? What legacy does a man like Anthony Sargeant leave behind? It depends who you ask. To his family, he was a superhero, the man who made school runs, cracked jokes, and cheered from the sidelines. To his crew, he was a leader, respected, strategic, and unflinching. To the city, he was complex, both builder and destroyer, a man who gave and took, who inspired and intimidated. In August 2020, 2 years after his death, a memorial football match was held in his name. Kids ran across the pitch he once ruled, parents watched, people mourned, but even then, the atmosphere was tense. Because when a king dies, the court doesn't vanish, the knives come out. Anthony Sargeant's story isn't just about crime, it's about duality. A man who tried to live in 2 worlds and was ultimately consumed by both. It's about cycles of power, of silence, of blood. It's about legacies and what's left when the headlines fade. 8 children growing up without their father, 4 men growing old behind bars, and a city still caught in the grip of postcode politics, where status is temporary and peace is never guaranteed. Because in Birmingham, one truth remains: every king bleeds, some in the spotlight, most in silence. But all the same, as the crown always comes with a cost.